Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Carmen Perez Jordan, and I am the president and CEO of the Gathering for Justice. I'll be your host for this very special Radical Reads tonight. On behalf of everyone at the Gathering for Justice, I want to thank all of you so much for joining us this evening. As many of you know, the Gathering for Justice was founded in 2005 by legendary Harry Belafonte, an artist, an activist, and civil rights leader. The mission of the Gathering is to build an intergenerational, intercultural movement to end child incarceration. Now in our 16th year of social and racial justice movement work, the Gathering has expanded to include our task forces, Justice League NYC and California, to focus on stopping police brutality. Radical Reads is one of our most popular programs, inspired by Mr. Belafonte's idea for a sustained radical book club, where the Gathering recommends a book every month along with an analysis of why the book was selected. And every few months, or whenever possible, we present these special author events. Tonight's Radical Reads presentation features our friend, our colleague, our honorary Justice League member, and the author of the incredible memoir, Better Not Bitter, by my brother, Yusef Salaam. In 1989, just at the age of 15, Dr. Yusef Salaam was tried and convicted in the Central Park 5 jogger case, along with 4 other Black and Latinx young men. The exonerated 5 spent between 7 to 13 years behind bars for crimes they did not commit until their sentences were overturned in 2002. Since then, they have received a settlement from the city of New York for its injustice and have been profiled in award-winning films, including the Central Park 5 documentary, and most recently, the Emmy Award-winning Netflix limited series, When They See Us, written and directed by Ava DuVernay. Over the past 2 decades, Yusef has become a family man, a father, a poet, an activist, and an inspirational speaker. He continues to utilize his platform to share his story with others and educate the public about the impact of mass incarceration and police misconduct. He regularly advocates for criminal justice reform, prison reform, and the abolition of juvenile solitary confinement and capital punishment. Yusef was a 2016 recipient of a Lifetime Achievement Award from President Barack Obama, and he, along with the rest of the exonerated 5, were honored by the Gathering for Justice, along with our founder, Harry Belafonte, with the Justice Award for his contributions to social justice. Yusef recently shared his story and stance on current issues on CNN, MSNBC, Revolt TV, NPR Atlanta, Fox, and so many more. Please welcome Dr. Yusef Salaam.
So glad to be here with you. How's everything going?
It's going well. We are so excited to have you with us tonight, especially because we have been on this journey not too long, but for the past, I would say, 5 to 7 years. Really excited about this conversation, as well as, to get started, to just hear more about your story. I was sharing earlier with you that reading your book or listening to your book, I have you on Audible. I was able to, just learn a lot more about you and what you actually went through, right? We watched the documentaries, we watched the series, but to hear your experience and to also understand your thinking really was incredibly inspiring, especially because of the fact that, you were 15 years old. And there are so many experiences that I believe really contributed to who you are today and why I feel is a reason you gifted this book to the world. And so tell us a little bit about that. Tell us, why this book was so important to write, and tell us the process that you felt, especially, for the audience and everybody who's listening.
You know, in writing Better Not Bitter, I had the awesome opportunity to reach back in time. In a way, it was almost like a Sankofa moment where it happened twice, right? It happened once where I had to dive very deeply into the layers that I had buried this whole story underneath. And I buried it because what I realized was that in order for me to move forward, I couldn't keep thinking about the trial that I had gone through. And surviving it, it made me realize that instead of just going through something, that I actually grew through something.
Mm.
The second part was when you mentioned Audible. I never thought that I would be a narrator, but I narrated my own book. And even that process was so amazing because rereading what I wrote was it was just mind blowing. It was moments where I said, "Oh man, I forgot this," but I realized that later on I actually picked it up and inserted it all in the process. Thinking about things like, redlining and tying it into the shootings on the South Side of Chicago, how this is a web of oppression that we've been experiencing. And my story is a story that oftentimes it looks like an anomaly. It
Mm.
looks like, you know what, they just got it wrong this one time. But
Right.
then when you hear about the countless names, right, the endless list of names of individuals who've not only been run over by the spike wheels of justice, and spat out, right, spat out only to be um, given a life where you can either come right back through the revolving door of recidivism or you could die,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And I'm thinking about Khalif Browder as an
Yeah.
example, right?
Yeah.
He's one of the individuals who I never met personally, but of course I met many Khalif Browders along the way. People
Hmm.
who really could not take it, who were there justly or not,
Yeah.
but they were trying to figure out why was this their life.
Mm.
And so for me, Better Not Bitter was really my love offering. Oftentimes I call the Central Park Jogger case a love story between God and his people. And I
Yeah.
mentioned that in my book because for me, really, it's one thing to see the story, go through the story, be one of the individuals or family members oppressed by the story. But it's another thing to peer into the future as you look back and you realize, wow,
Hmm.
I survived it. I
Hmm.
grew through it. I came out of that injustice with my mental faculties still intact.
Yeah.
I have a story to tell. But more importantly, my story could not be told in the absence of the story of the history of America itself. Quite
Mm.
often, they say that if America could talk, the very first thing it would do is call for blood. We're
Mm.
on a crime scene. The only thing that's missing is the actual caution tape. And so, Better Not Bitter is my attempt to understand myself more. It's my attempt to uh, forge a way forward for those of us who care enough to do this work, because this work is a difficult job. You know, this is the work that people quite often, and my wife can tell you better than I, she shares me with the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And it's a hard thing because for me, I feel like there is no other life to live other than a life of service, other than a life of sacrifice, um, because it's enjoyable as well. There's
Yeah.
value, there's life here, there's opportunity, you know, and it's fun.
Yeah. A life of service, at the age of 15, you talked a lot about you had these positive affirmations. You envisioned yourself outside of those walls. And there's a saying where Mr. Belafonte and Nelson Mandela, when they had met, Mr. Belafonte talks about, you could cage the singer, but not the song. And it was really about your mental freedom. Could you talk a little bit about that? And how at the age of 15 did you realize that that was important? Because at the age of 44, I'm beginning to do positive affirmations for myself, right? Like there's what's called mirror work, or there's just, trying to name something that exists, what you're actually trying to work towards. But you would tell yourself that you were with your family, that you were going to get out. Tell us about that, and how at the age of 15 were you able to think so, to think so positively, especially with your situation?
It's interesting because it wasn't just all me, right? I think about the DNA that we have, this thing that I often call the deoxyribonucleic acid, because I just don't like the way DNA sounds. It sounds very weak and flimsy. You need to use that big word, right? And people say, what was that? My mother, for those of us that have seen When They See Us, there's a scene that is being recreated. And in that scene, you see my mother coming into the interrogation room and stopping everything. And true to life, everyone who was involved in this case was made to make a false statement that the public believed that was true. And I was the only one that didn't. You see my mother get me out of the clutches of the enemy, but in the very next scene, you see me right back in the belly of the beast, the womb of America. In that moment, which was just a moment, my mother said to me, this was like almost like my mother was my Joanne Chesimard, right? She was my Harriet Tubman, and still is. She said to me, they need you to participate in whatever it is that they're trying to do. Do not participate. Refuse. Wow. See, what a lot of folks don't realize is that in the intentionality, in the words that give life, my mother was teaching me something that was so critical and crucial. I had yet to wrap my mind around it, because you got to remember, when you're a child, you do things that children do. You think in the way that children think. Your ideas are big and bright and amazing right up until the point you wake up to what Dr. Malcolm X says is the American nightmare. Right. We all want that American dream. We all hope, right? Those women, the mothers who give birth to the nations, and especially to men, to young children that are males, I have yet to wrap my mind around the fear that is encapsulated in that. Because in that fear is the hope and the dream that my child will make it. My child will get out of the gravitational pull of everything negative that the system wants them to believe of themselves. So in my mother's statement, I had to realize and grow up just like that. Yeah. It was like I had to, her words were so calm, but so impactful at the same time. These words are words that I continue to say to myself, even to this day, right? Do not capitulate. When you think about the system and systemic issues, we could either say, oh, you know what, we were born poor and this is our lot and it is what it is. And that's one idea. But there are roses that have grown from concrete, right? There are people that have been able to take that's right. The margins of life that they have been pushed into, and just like Nipsey Hussle, beautify it. Right. Plant seeds of hope and dreams and aspirations, not necessarily just for themselves, but for their children's children's children. Because, see, what we've never been taught is the proper planning. The planning that takes place and says, I don't need you to plan just for the weekend, right? Many of us, we go to work and we're like, man, I can't wait till Friday. They poison our thoughts. Right. With the very thing that we used to continue an African concept. The griot or the jele was the one who was the rapper, who would carry the history of who we were and where we were to go. And in that same thing that would give us life, back in the days, they called it sparking each other, right? They would talk life into each other.
Yeah.
And it was that, that whole thing, as I thought about this whole experience, if they need me to participate, then it's on me to stand my ground.
Wow.
In a time where I never knew what stand my ground meant until I heard about Trayvon Martin. It's on me to realize, like my good friend Les Brown says, you were born on purpose and with a purpose. And the truth of that is what? The truth of that is the birth process in and of itself. That when you and your parents got together, each and every one of us was one of over 400 million options. And we were born on purpose. And if we were born on purpose, we were born with a purpose. And so the whole thought process.
That's one of your chapters.
Yeah, but and I'm saying all of this because that whole thought process wasn't necessarily, it didn't start with me.
Right.
That was a process, that was a seed that was born in me from my mother, her mother, her mother, her mother. It was the seed and the hope and the dream of those who they turned into slaves, that one day we would break generational curses. That in that process of the griot or the jele being the new modern rap artist, that we wouldn't plant seeds of destruction in the community, right? We often hear things back in the days, it was spend that check and get it right back. And you in the club, you spending that check, you're like, yeah, give me the bottles, give me this, give me that. Right. Same bottle that might cost $60 in the streets, cost $600 in the club.
That's right.
And you realize you ain't getting that money back.
Yeah.
That we've been lied to. And so I'm saying, just to wrap that thought up, that all of that came because if you've seen Sankofa, the great movie, Sankofa. My grandmother showed it to us when we were children. You realize that this young lady went through a process of awakening, of understanding. She needed to know what was at stake. And in that same reality, I needed to know and understand what was at stake through what my mother was telling me, that they need me and they always need us.
Yeah.
That me isn't me. That me is us. That's the we. That's the totality of us. If we fall into the trap, we won't be able to get out.
Yeah. What a profound statement and a perfect segue to welcome our readers into the conversation. And so thank you so much for that. One of my favorite parts of our Radical Reads authors events is having the opportunity to hear an excerpt of the featured book read out loud. We assemble a group of friends and family and pull a short section, usually from the beginning of the book. Tonight, we're really honored to include Yusef's Salaam's sister, Aisha, his wife, Synovia, and his stepdaughter, Aliyah, with our cast. I hope that the audience listening and watching at home enjoys, but pay deep attention to what Yusef's words are. Without further ado, please welcome our cast in order of appearance: Lieutenant Edwin Raymond of the NYPD, NYPD 12, and former candidate of City Council; Zakia Ansari of the Alliance for Quality Education and Justice League NYC member; Aliyah, who is our youth activist and advocate and a Justice League NYC member; Vic, Columbia Grad School student and a Gathering for Justice Fellow; Luis Hernandez, National Director of Youth Campaigns and Leadership at the Gathering for Justice; Yusef's wife, Synovia, welcome, it's such an honor; and last but not least, Yusef's sister, Aisha Salaam. Welcome everyone, and when you're ready, please begin.
goes. Greetings, everyone. It's Edwin Raymond. I apologize for the lack of formality. Things ran a little bit later at work. I want to start by saying it's truly an honor to be part of this event. They didn't know who they had. I say this often, and most people think it's something I figured out after being in prison for a crime I did not commit. It is not. From very early on, I innately knew that I had a destiny that existed beyond the one that the criminal justice system attempted to assign to me. I just needed to live long enough for that purpose to come to fruition. And to be honest, my survival wasn't the only thing at stake. My physical survival, yes, but also my mental and emotional endurance. They didn't know who they had. In 1989, I was run over by the spiked wheels of justice. I was vilified in such a way that I became a pariah, a scourge. Within the first few weeks of the accusations that would turn Antron McCray, Kevin Richardson, Raymond Santana, Corey Wise, and myself, then known as the Central Park Five, into poster children for Black deviants, a tsunami of media rolled out and a proverbial red carpet leading us to our destination at the hands of the American justice system. On the day I was convicted, my hope died. It would take years before it was resurrected again. Guilty. That verdict shattered me. I was a child, but I didn't get to go home with my mom and turn myself in later. They put the handcuffs on me right there and then. No hugs, no long goodbyes, no letting me change my clothes or shoes. They took us away immediately. I felt a profound sense of powerlessness in that moment, a moment I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. My body shook with fear. I'm still not sure how I found the strength to stand up.
I'm gonna die. They tried to kill me. They stole years from us, from me, but I didn't die because I was somehow always clear that I was born on purpose with a purpose. With that knowledge, I was able to keep my mind free, even when my body was imprisoned. When I think about how I was able to survive this thing and why I believe in the power of purpose in a person's life, I think about the ancient stories of Abraham, found in both the Bible and the Quran. Stories I uncovered only after deep diving into these sacred texts while in prison. Abraham was chosen. He was called to a specific assignment. When they threw him into the fire, all he had to say was, "God, help me." And God told the fire to be cool and safe. That's what this journey has been like for me. Of course, I'm not Abraham. I'm no prophet, but I do believe I have a purpose that made it so that despite the things designed to kill me, the racism, the criminal system of injustice, the attempted assault while in prison, it was God who told the prison to be cool and safe for me. So I didn't suffer the same fate of others accused of and imprisoned for rape. The code didn't apply to me for some reason. There was, I believe, a light that the guards and other prisoners saw in and around me, a light that made them say, "You don't belong here." That doesn't mean it was easy, not by any means. I had hard and difficult days, but I felt this sense of having a veil, a hedge of protection, following and covering me wherever I went.
I have a somewhat mystical perspective when it comes to my experience. I firmly believe that when you look at what transpired in my life, between then and now, what you see is the hand of God. You may ask, how is that possible? How can a terrible injustice such as the one I lived with for almost 25 years be representative of anything divine at work? I believe that everything that's happening to you is actually happening for you. Everything we experience in life, from our greatest joys to our deepest pain and hardship, is shaping and creating us. It's preparing us for what we will need later on in our lives. I was ripped out of society and lodged back in the womb of America, what some in America would call the belly of the beast. Like many Black men and women, I was in a place where I was forced to be dependent on the system that in its creation is designed to use and harm Black bodies for profit. And it's dependence that can become too familiar, that you can feel too accustomed to if you're not careful. Far too often, men and women are physically released back into society who aren't mentally, emotionally, or spiritually ready. They experience that rebirth too soon. They aren't taught how to detach from the incubator, so to speak. They are still dependent on being fed by a deeply dysfunctional system. But when the cell door shut, I knew, even at such an early age, that if I was not careful to protect my mind and heart, I could become attached to the process of getting my nourishment from a system that didn't care about me at all. I had to keep reminding myself that this experience was one that God would use to teach me something I would need in the future. I now firmly believe that I was being stretched, broken, and adjusted in a different way in order to be birthed back into society as a person who is now fearless.
As my mother always says, nobody leaves here alive. The wealthiest place on earth has never been Africa, where there is gold and diamonds, or the Middle East, where there's oil. The richest place on earth is the graveyard. It's the place where everyone's unfulfilled hopes, dreams, and aspirations have been laid to rest. My challenge to you is this: no matter what life has taken you through, try to live full and die empty. So it's important that you don't just read stories like mine and then go about your life business as usual. Take a look at the evil that showed up in my life and figure out what your light will be. What will be your purpose in this moment? Whether you're a child of a former enslaved African or a child of a former slave owner, how do you use your present-day privilege to help the cause of racial injustice? Can I leverage the resources I have and start donating to causes and organizations that help people who have been marginalized and trampled upon? Can I give my time and skills to work with communities and organizations at the grassroots level? Can I take my voice and use it to defend the voiceless, to have the difficult conversations needed to change hearts and minds? These are the questions I hope you ask, even as you unpack what your own purpose is.
In order to mobilize for change, we must be able to connect the dots between a murder in Minneapolis and brutality in Biloxi, between redlining in Chicago and Black homelessness rates in Los Angeles. And there's another side to these headlines, a more intimate perspective that is just as impactful in changing minds and hearts, is the story of Breonna Taylor, moving from Michigan to Kentucky for a better life. It's a story of George Floyd, serving at-risk youth with a Bible study group in Houston. Knowing the collective narrative is important. Knowing the story of the individual is transformative. Linking the individual narrative with the collective one paints a clearer picture of what actually is happening to Black and brown people in this country. No room is left for speculation or assumption. That said, it's vital to continue telling the earthly, collective part of any story, of our story, how white supremacy embedded in the American system of injustice infringed on the rights of 5 Black boys and their families. Ours is the story of 5 boys who were brought low only to rise again because the truth can never stay buried. Ours is the story of 5 boys who were buried alive and forgotten. Ours is the story of a system that forgot we were seeds.
The Central Park jogger case is actually a love story between God and his people about a system of injustice placed on trial itself, then toppled in order to produce what amounts to a miracle in modern time. But as the old saying goes, when you're walking through hell, keep on walking. There is always something on the other side. There is purpose on the other side. Sure, it's hard to see it that way. You can't always see the path, even when you're on it. But one day, just like I did, you'll turn around and reflect on the journey and say, my God, look at what I went through. This didn't happen to me, but this happened for me. I came out stronger. Will there be indelible scars? Yes, of course. The way I move through the world and how I see myself have forever been altered by the levels of pain and uncertainty I had to climb my way out of. But I returned to society and learned to live on my own 2 feet. And now I get to show people how they can live on theirs. In the immortal words of the great modern philosopher, Cardi B, knock me down 9 times, but I get up 10.
When I was in prison, a simple but profound question was asked of me. Who are you? 6 months into my bid, Jerome Jones, a corrections officer, asked me, Who are you? I answered as a teenager trying to parse the magnitude of what had just happened to me. I'm Yusef Salaam, one of the guys they accused of raping the Central Park jogger, but I didn't do it. Jerome replied, I know that. I've been watching you. You're not supposed to be here. Who are you? This second probing confused me. I said, oh, shucks, I don't know. But in that moment, something shifted inside me. It occurred to me that I actually didn't know who I was. Sure, I was the son of Sharon Salaam, brother of Sharif and Aisha, but who was I? And that began my long spiritual and personal journey of realizing who and why I am. I would lie in my cell and ask myself, why was I born? What am I supposed to contribute to this world? Why am I going through this? But these were questions and not limits. That curiosity became the driver for every choice I made while in prison, every book I read, the work I did to keep up with school. This was how I chose to approach doing time, knowing I was innocent, even having these correctional officers affirm my innocence, and still feeling helpless to do anything but my physical incarceration could have driven me mad. No one would have faulted me if I had. But because of the foundation my mother had given and growing faith at the time, I decided to become an active creator in my own mental freedom. I would sit in my cell and create imprints on my mind of what it was I wanted in the future. I pictured myself free and held on to that picture for dear life. I found that your imagination is a precursor of what is to come, what's possible.
Thank you all so much. That was so powerful. And I just want Aisha and Synovia to stay on. I have a question for each of you. Aisha, Yusef talked about you and your mother and him having a strong support system. Could you share a little bit about how it was for you as a sister? I know that oftentimes we think about the parents, we think about the mothers or the fathers, but it's not often that, we get to hear from siblings who also experience something like this with their loved one.
It was the worst experience ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I am Yusuf's oldest sister, oldest of the family. But we're pretty close in age. So even though I'm older, we hung out with the same people. We would hang out all the time. I mean, this was my friend. Like, he wasn't just my brother, like he was my friend, So this was the toughest thing. I sometimes don't even know how I even got through it. It was difficult. You would, at the time I was in high school also, so you ride the train and, it would be all splashed all over the papers. You'd see people reading about what's happening to your own brother and them talking about it. And you just felt so small. And I just felt like I wanted to scream and just yell, he didn't do it, just let everybody know. But then I wanted to kind of hide, so it was rough. It was rough. And, my mother did an excellent job of sheltering me and my youngest brother. Most people didn't know that he had other siblings until kind of recently. So she did an excellent job of doing that. But it was tough. This is not something that I would wish on any family. Because, they go through it and they do the hardest time, but, we do time as well. So.
Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so important for the viewers to hear your experience as well. There are so many people around the country, as Yusef had talked about, there are people that go through this from not just New York, but Chicago, all over this country, and to hear your voice and that experience, I think it's so important, and it validates what a lot of siblings are feeling as well. So thank you for that, and sending you so much love. Thank you for being on with us.
Thank you.
Zenobia, so good to see you. Thank you so much for being a partner to Yusef, and just want to hear from you, like, how has this witnessing, the series that Anna DuVernay put out, and seeing it, but also you all having children, like, how do you present this to them? What's your experience? How is it for you as a wife? I know, we heard from Aisha talking about she wanted to shield him. She wanted to protect him, right? She was the older sister. Are there times where you're just kind of like, could we just turn it off? How is it for you?
It's good. And that's a statement that people wouldn't expect to hear, because there's so much going on in the world, that for anyone not to step up and be active is not good. We all need to be out there playing some part in what's going on today. How do I shield the children? Or we have a wide range of children. It's 10 of them, so they range in age from 25 to 5. So the older ones know, and with the documentary that came out with by Kim Burns and Sarah Burns and Dave McMahon, gave them a kind of an eye opener of what really happened to Daddy. Not that he wouldn't talk about it, but it gave other people saw it. So now they were like, wait, hold up, that's your dad. Or wait, hold up, I've seen him before. So they had to be, reinformed of how they move about in life. And they also were seeing what was going on. So it's nothing to not put your feet, hands, and body into the struggle. So it's no problem to share with him to the world. I mean, it's just so much, and it's a great thing to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So,
and it's such a courageous thing to do. And I just want to thank you both. I want to thank you, especially being by his side. And, it's not just courageous, but the fact that Yusef has used this to actually share it with the world and to talk about not just his personal experience, but also to share what happens in these prisons, right? The conditions, the generational trauma, all those things, and wanting to break some of that. And so I just want to thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for reading. And I'm gonna bring you back, Yusef, so that we could continue the conversation. All right, so Yusef, how did it feel to hear your words? I mean, I know you talked about doing Audible, but how did it feel to read your word or hear your words from your loved ones?
Oh man, powerful, amazing. It's funny because, sometimes you put work out there in the world and you wonder how it's received. You wonder, is it making any kind of an impact, And to hear my words through other people's voices is like, wow. It's funny because, I used to talk about my experience in such a way that I needed folks to understand. And this was something that I learned. I didn't even know that I was doing this, but I needed folks to understand that part of the way that I was able to survive this was that I would talk about me outside of me. I would say, you know, this happened to Yusef. And it was because I was able to discover, I was able to, in a way like the Dogon, when they take an object and they're able to go through a process of understanding, you know, Juri so, Bini so, Bolo so, Sodai, and then they go down the rabbit hole to the next level, having taken the information that they gathered from the level that they just were in, but now they have to begin all over again with that same process. It's amazing too, because, you know, most of us don't know what harm prison has done and still is doing.
Yeah.
You know, even after, you know, decades of being out of prison. You know, I was in the mall the other day, and it just, like, for the first time, I've been walking specific ways since I've been home from prison. When I say the other day, I mean literally, it was like a week ago.
Mm-hmm.
It dawned on me for the first time that I walk in the same pattern that I walked in when I was in the yard.
Wow.
Predicting how people were moving so that we didn't bump into each other, to avoid altercation, interactions, and things of that nature, you know. And it just blew my mind that I first of all, that I was able to become aware of that and realize that this was something that was part of the process. You got to say hi if you're going to look. You got to say, hey.
Hi.
That's baby Yusef right there. He was born on my birthday. That's the last of the great ones.
Beautiful.
You know, but to hear my words being restated, it empowers me. It provides nourishment, that water of nourishment for not only the seeds that I put out there, but the seeds that are inside of me that I want to continue to give birth to, right? It's that thing that they say, the mighty oak was once a seed, but we have to create and water and nourish so that that seed can turn into the mighty oak, right? So that when it's our time to leave, right? We get the opportunity to package in our DNA, in our deoxyribonucleic acid. As we pass the baton back to the generations that are coming, we get the opportunity to give them a chance. And that chance is to break generational curses and to continue to break generational curses.
Yeah. You know, you say in the book, ultimately, you talk about one central lesson, that acceptance, more than even forgiveness, it's what's necessary for our personal forward movement. I think about the title of your book. And, you know, I have a lot of people in my life that have gone to prison. And, you know, I wonder, how could you not be bitter, right? And why acceptance, right? I just, you know, I know so many people who are listening. There's like this sense of you moved forward. You wrote this love story. You wrote this book. You gifted it. But are there any feelings there? You know, loss of time, the witnessing the pain that your family went through. Why acceptance?
So there's always feelings. I mean, I don't want to make it seem like I'm, like, you know, sitting on this cloud with my legs crossed or anything like that. Like, I'm actively bending reality. That is part of the process, right? The better you get at realizing what you were able to grow through, the better you're able to deal with life, right? What is, I think, the most important thing is understanding that we think we are in control. This is like really profound. We think that we are absolutely in control. There's a verse in the Quran that says, you cannot will unless God also wills. And what that means for me is being a child of God, being a servant of the Creator. You have to understand that in your actions, you have to almost be blessed by the Creator in order to move forward. But by pulling the Creator into the action, it gives you the amount of grace that you need. Because what happens if you fail? Party B, knock me down 9 times, I'll get up 10. What happens if you get knocked down and you fall flat on your face? My good friend Les Brown says, he says, when you fall, not if you fall. He says, when you fall, try to land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up. But I fell on my face. Realizing that I'm still alive, I'm able to turn over. I'm able to gather myself, however long it takes. And then I'm able to get up. And now I have a lesson. Now I've been taught something. I've been taught how to develop peripheral vision so that as I move throughout life, when that next 2x4 comes, I know that I need to duck, that I'm realizing that life is shaping me. It's creating a survivor, right? Everybody wants to be a diamond, but nobody wants to be cut. I mean, think about it, like the pressure that creates a diamond is one thing, and then the pressure on top of that, and then on top of that, but then the final test is for the diamond to be cut into the gem that people admire. To deal with the feelings is to understand something that Nelson Mandela said. He said he had to leave anger and bitterness in the prison because if he took it outside with him, it'd destroy him. He's often quoted by saying, being bitter is like drinking poison and expecting your enemy to die. And it's not until you become harmed by someone that you truly understand what that means. You have to sit with it, right? I had to sit with, the article that Donald Trump wrote calling for the death penalty specifically for our case. I had to sit with understanding that this same man who wanted us to die so cavalierly just paid $85,000 of his own money back in 1989, which was a tremendous amount of money then. And it's still a tremendous amount of money. Most people don't make $85,000 a year, but for him, it was nothing. I had to know that if I'm embittered by a person who doesn't even think about me, there is no care. There's not like I can't stop his show, right? What do? The immortal words of Dr. Maya Angelou comes to mind. She said that you should be angry. When I thought about that, I said, wow, what does anger do? It causes you to change. If a person is trying to fix something and they get angry about it, then the wheels in their minds begin to start spinning. And now they're starting to use creative juices that they may not have thought about before. But she said, you should be angry, but you must not be bitter, reminding us that being bitter is like drinking poison. It doesn't do anything to the object of its displeasure, but it does everything to you. And then she teaches us how we all can become alchemists. This is like the most beautiful thing in life. She says, take the anger and use it, dance it. And I think about Misty Copeland. March it. And I think about great Dr. King and others. She said, you paint it. You do everything about it, she said. And then she said, you talk it. Never stop talking it. I think that my attempt to remain better and not bitter is by talking it, is by taking the lemons that life gave me and making lemonade, right? And it's a bitter lemonade, but it's something to drink.
But it's lemonade. That
Lemonade.
reminds me of how we talk to young people, and not just young people. I think we talk to ourselves and we say, you know, how can we transform this righteous anger into power, right? And it's to your point. I also feel like in your book, you address you're constantly saying you, as though you're addressing an audience, you're addressing, was there a specific reader in mind that you had? Who are you talking to?
Talking to all of the young people who are looking at their lives in particular, and they're being told that they're worthless.
Mm.
And I'm talking to them because if they believe it, and I say this in my book, if they believe that they're worthless, then they begin to move throughout their lives as if they are mistakes.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the people who are not so young, but who have given up their hopes and dreams and aspirations and put them on a day on an island called someday. You know, one day I'll get to that. Someday I'll do it. And then they come to the end of their lives realizing that they never wrote that book. They never built that ship. They never did the great thing that they only came and could give birth to. I need them to begin to dream again. See, something happens when we well, first of all, something happens when we individually raise our vibrations. And then magic happens when we collectively raise our vibrations. Because what's for you will never be denied. But what's not for you, you'll never be able to get. And it's a beautiful thing, though, because for the audience that reads, or the audience that listens, or the audience that's watching now, it's the opportunity for them to realize that the specialness that sometimes is attributed to the individual is in them, right? A Barack Obama is not an anomaly, right? That's the starting point. All of us have that greatness inside of us. All of us have the ability to be graceful, to be powerful, to be who we are supposed to be. And I think when we do that, the world is greater for it. We're better because of it. We get the opportunity to look like, you know, we can brush it off of our shoulders and keep moving forward, because that's what life is really about. We have to survive. We cannot be as one. This picture was described to me once by Les Brown. He said, you know, sometimes people pull over on the highway of life. And if you're in distress, you would put on your hazard lights. But imagine a person who's given up, pulling over on the highway of life, not even putting on their hazards. Right? We gotta, in those moments, we gotta at least say, man, let me ask for help. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We've all had to do that. I've had to do that, right? I constantly do that. But it's the understanding that it doesn't take away from you, but it adds. It allows you to be able to show up. It allows you to be able to be who you are supposed to be, that you were born on purpose and with a purpose. It allows you to be.
You know, I think a lot about the men that are still in the belly of the beast. I think, you know, I've been working inside. I used to go into the prisons at a very young age, in my early 20s. And I met some of the most beautiful people in there. I also met people who had lost hope. What message do you have for our siblings that are still in the belly of the beast, that maybe don't have what's your a Jerome Jones, right? what do you say? What message? You know, I when I go back home to California, I often hear the men that had served life that are now out will say, "Oh, I saw you. I heard your talk," and I certainly want to share this with them. What message do you have for them?
The biggest message is the message that my mother gave me. I constantly echo that, right? And I say it because, like, even in creation, the creator, the ease of what the creator does, and I use the Quran and Islam for this because I'm a Muslim, but God says that when he decrees a thing, he says be, and it is. And I'm saying that God decreed us to be alive. And the whole system, the whole institutional oppressive system is telling us the exact opposite. We have to know that we are called to be, and therefore we are. And I'm saying that in the affirmations, those of us who don't have a Jerome Jones or a Eleanor Faulkner or a Sharon Salaam or Isha Salaam or a Sharif Salaam, a beautiful, wife Synovia, right? I mean, great friends like Carmen. we can speak life into ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you, when I wrote my book, my first book, Words of a Man, My Right to Be, I wrote this book. This book is a book that I wrote. 90% of it was written while I was in prison.
Oh, wow.
This is a book of poetry.
Mm-hmm.
But in the poetry, I'm writing, I'm imagining, I'm pontificating, I'm hypothesizing, I'm speaking life into a future that has yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
There's a poem in here. I never forget this. I was walking, and I talk about this in Better Not Bitter. I said I was walking down the corridor in Clinton, Dannemora, and all of a sudden I felt this overwhelming sense to write. And I grabbed a napkin. I said, somebody give me a napkin. I grabbed a napkin and I began to write until I couldn't write anymore. And it was a very succinct piece of work that has never been edited, never been altered. It simply says, I'll meet you in between Venus and Mars. And I begin with the words, in between Venus and Mars is the center of our attraction. Of those connected to the stars, hardly a fraction. It behooves man to work for the day when this will all end. Life is mortal, so follow the way of those heaven sent. Awaken and receive that which will give you life, or remain horizontal and never begin the flight. For the solution, I'll descend from amongst the stars, and I'll meet you in between Venus and Mars. You know, when we were in LA, and the film came out, and the world was wrapping their arms around us, and we were gliding, we would, what they call that thing, crowd surfing. We would, I'm not saying we were really doing this, but I'm saying that's how it felt, right? They celebrated us and continue to still celebrate us, right? They say we are now celebrities in the celebrity light. How could I have known in Clinton, Dannemora, that I would descend from amongst the stars to meet you where? Not just on the planet Earth, but on the ground that we walk on the ground that we march on, right? My words to people who are giving up hope, right? Because you haven't given up hope yet.
Right.
Is to know, just like my mother said as well, that they need you to participate. Why is it that in America, they would pay upwards of $200,000 for a juvenile to remain in prison?
Right.
Why is it that in America, over $50,000 for an adult to remain in prison? My good friend Raymond Santana, he said they want us to occupy jail cells.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want us to occupy college dorm rooms.
That's right.
They could pay for us to get educated, but yet they pay for us to stay imprisoned. And more importantly, they're really paying for us to be conditioned to
Right.
not be able to survive outside.
Yeah.
conditioned to not be able to want to taste real food anymore, right? And I'm not saying just in prison, I'm talking about outside of prison too, right? Those of us who are in the margins of life, you know, COVID did a really interesting thing to us. It caused us to, for the first time, taste real food again because we had to cook it ourselves.
Right.
And then when we wanted to go back out, right? People popping up all over the social media, we outside. We wanted to go back out and we went outside and we got sick.
Right.
A lot of us got sick from the food we were eating. It didn't taste good.
That's right.
You know, and I'm saying all of that. The most important thing is that you are the most important ingredient in your growth and development.
Mm-hmm.
As your mind is the most powerful weapon,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to take your mind and transport yourself beyond the bars.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're doing life,
Mm-hmm.
I never did one day in prison because I took my mind and transported it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. That reminds me of Samuel Jackson's words in the Black Star album with Talib Kweli and Mos Def. He says, "Our conditioning has been conditioned," right? And you also make me think about you know, some of the work that Mr. Belafonte has done, where Mr. Belafonte, when we work at the gathering, there's no blueprint for how to do this movement work. Mr. Belafonte provides a canvas, but it is our responsibility to paint the picture and to go get the tools in order for us to paint the picture. But there's no template on, you know, how to organize in a community. But a lot of these institutions, county government institutions, have the intake template, right? And so these people have now become robots that are working in these spaces. There's no thinking for themselves. And I remember I was working for Mr. B. I was young, I was 26 years old. And I was like, where's my template, right? Like, what do you mean strategize? I don't know what that is. And for a long time, you know, we don't know how to think for ourselves. And it's to your point, society, they don't want us to think for ourselves. And so I really appreciate your point, but, you know, it leads me to, you know, Lewis said, wow, chills, brother, when you were talking, when you were reciting that poem, and you do that in your book. You know, you have woven in lyrics from Nas and, you know, talked about Cardi B. You know, it was music and art an integral part of your ability to move through challenges, move through some of these things that presented themselves in front of you?
Let's say yes. You know, I've never been taught how to draw, but yet I'm an artist. Like this piece that I wear is a piece that I created myself, right? Not the actual casting of the material, but the design. And then I gave it to the jeweler that I use, and he was able to recreate it through a wax structure exactly how I drew it. The rings that I wear, you know, this CP5 ring, where on my necklace it says exonerated 5 underneath it, because I wanted to capture the history. I didn't want people to just look at it and say to themselves, oh, they're the exonerated 5 now. I needed you to know where we came from, because it wasn't a beautiful story from the beginning, right? And then of course the YS, you know, for not only just Yusef Salaam, but Yusef Speaks. And it's crazy, when I created this, my wife's name is Synovia, right? And so the first letter being an S, this is also now Yusef and Synovia. So she has her own piece that she wears. But I want to show something to you as well in terms of art. These are the pants that I was wearing April 19th, 1989. These pants have never been washed since April 19th, 1989. I got these pants back a few years ago from my attorneys. They had gone over it with a fine-tooth comb. looking for evidence that wasn't there. They kept
Exactly.
saying that this woman lost 3/4 of her blood.
Her blood. Yeah.
And as you can see, there's nothing but artwork on these pants, right?
Wow.
And it was those things, art, because it was my meditative space to get into and to grow, and music because I remember when there was a message in the music, and I remember when there was music in the message. That escape was profound because I always wanted to be a hip hop artist, but I didn't. When I say hip hop artist, when I tell that to people nowadays, they say, "Man, you too old to be a hip hop artist."
You are a hip hop artist. Don't let them tell you anything different.
I'm not going to let them tell me nothing different. I got a
Uh-huh.
song in me, right? But I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you this though: the Chuck D's of the world
Mhm.
were our elders.
Right.
They lived a bit in order to profoundly talk about what they were talking about. I mean, it blew my mind when I heard, when I say I heard, because sometimes we listen to things, but we don't really listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chuck D, I got a letter from the government the other day. I opened and read it. It said they were suckers. They wanted me for the army or whatever. Picture me giving a damn. I said never. I mean, I was like, oh, snap. That's some next level stuff to think about, right? KRS-One, when he talks about love's gonna get you, right? This is stuff that speaks life as opposed to death into the world.
Yeah.
And so those mediums, for me, were life-giving. They were life-giving because artistically, I was able to capture things and provide form to things that might be in my mind. And the word, giving the word the ability to have life as well.
Yeah.
Being able to realize that my first debut as a rap artist, I guess, was when I was standing in front of the judge and they asked me if I had anything to say before they sentenced me. And standing up and doing like what do they call it? A remix of my hero, Malcolm X,
Yeah.
saying, I'm not going to sit here at your table and watch you eat and call myself dinner. You know what I mean? At the time, I don't really know what I'm saying. I mean, I knew what I was saying then, but when I revisit that today, wow, the audacity, the judge's face let me know that he knew exactly what I was saying.
Yeah.
I mean, he bounced that gavel on the that you know on the
So hard.
He was so angered by
Yeah.
what he said, you know. And at the very end of my statement, if you go back into the court record, you'll realize that when just before I sat down, I said the truth is gonna come out.
Yeah.
The truth one day will come out, you know. And it's those things I think that it gives us the ability to find ways forward, to forge ways forward. You know, it's amazing when you think about the movement and movement work, right? How young people were. You know, I remember looking at the film Judas and the Black Messiah and how blown away I was at the realization that they use us to get to us. I mean,
Yeah.
we know this, but we don't know it like on that level. That's,
Yeah.
you know, and how young these freedom fighters were,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And what did they want? They just wanted the ability to be
Yeah.
like God said, so that we can be.
And to your point, you know, that's what happened with hip hop and rap, right? So there was lyrics like, you know, Method Man, cash rules everything around me, cream, get the money, dollar, dollar bill, y'all, which really is talking about capitalism, right? And at a very young age, like, you know, you're talking to a hip hop head. I speak with lyrics, right? Like, and so I think this is a perfect conversation to also say, like, you know, they did that to our music, right? And I know that there was a shift in our music because there was so much empowerment in our music, right? There was this identity, there was this teaching, there was this sense of pride that they had to, like you said, you know, they infiltrated our movements, and they infiltrated the music in order to create what we're now seeing, right? And to have us think that that's who we were, right? That's who the community was. But I will, you know, I have to say, you know, your haircut at the time was giving me that Kid and Play vibe, you know what I'm saying? And so I really, you know, I think it's important because we are able to capture young people through the arts, through the poetry. And so you're speaking a language that is also the love language, right? That is our love language. That is our understanding. When I went to college, I didn't have the language that other college students had for what was happening in my community. But I had it through music, and I had it through rap and hip hop. And so I just wanted to share that. I love how you incorporate lyrics and poetry because you're reaching truly you're reaching the heart of people, and you're taking it back to generational love. So yeah.
So crazy about that haircut that you talked about. I don't know if folks realize, but this haircut, this was the haircut that I was wearing. I mean, it's a little exaggerated in the film when they see us, but of course, as I grew up a little bit in the prison, my hair actually grew that high too. But if you look closely on the cover of the book,
Yeah.
is an upside down crown.
Oh, wow.
My mother used to cut my hair. My mother cut my hair like this. I wanted her to cut it a specific way, and she cut my hair exactly how I wanted it, you know? It's so funny.
Wow, she was giving you your crown.
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
your crown.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that is so profound. Tell us about your mother.
Wow.
How is she? I know, she fought, and she fought. You know, I'm a mother of 2 young boys.
Yeah.
And this movement makes me afraid for them because of everything that I've seen. But tell us about her. Share with everybody who you know, right? That maybe some of us that probably wasn't captured in the series or in the films.
Well, there is something that is captured in the film that wasn't necessarily expounded upon.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to maybe take this moment to expound upon it, because it's part of what could be considered magic and medicine, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a scene where I'm in a visit, and my mom is there, and she's saying in English something like, "Protect me from the harm and the this and the that," and so forth and so on. And you know, prior to that, I think when we were on a visit, I said something to her, and she said, "Oh, you've been studying. Keep it up, like keep up studying," right? And since then, I realized what she was telling me in Arabic is one of the most powerful things that you can ever say.
Mm-hmm.
So in Arabic, it's the words "A'udhu bi kalimati la min sharri ma khalaq." And what that means in English is you're saying "A'udhu bi," which means I seek refuge in "A'udhu bi kalimati la," the most perfect word of God, min sharri ma khalaq, from the evil of that which he has created. And what's beautiful about this right here is the word that is heard. If people know Arabic, the word that is heard is Kalima. The Kalima is what people make when they declare that they want to be a Muslim, right? And all it means is that you bear witness that there is nothing worthy of worship but God.
That's right.
God has no partner. God has no associates. There are not this, you know, in life, we can sometimes see God's manifestation in life. And sometimes we attribute the manifestation to other things, but it's all God.
Yes.
right? Even in like the African passage and all of the things that happened during the creation and the devastation that turned kings and queens and scientists and everyone into what they wanted them to be, slaves, right? They tucked away inside of themselves the truth.
Mhm.
And it's a beautiful thing because for me, you begin to tell the unseen forces who you are. And the unseen forces come to shield you.
Mhm.
It's what in the Christian world they call the hedge of God.
Mhm.
And I'm saying I can kind of dip into different so-called faiths because what I know about faith is that it's really just all one faith,
Right.
right? People call it this and they call it that. They know that the people are fighting, the Christians are fighting the Muslims and the Muslims are fighting the Jews and all of them are following messengers that came with a message from God.
That's right.
And that's the beautiful thing about it. So in the prison, saying that, it allowed me also to realize, like, here I am in a very dangerous situation. I mean, you could lose your life just
Mhm.
like that,
Mhm.
right? I've seen people lose their lives just like that. Blows my mind. And then you wanna protect yourself, but you don't want to get in trouble.
Mhm.
And so here it was. I remember I would walk down the corridor and I would tap my knuckles on the wall. And this was cement bricks, tapping my knuckles on the bricks until my hand became a physical weapon.
Mm.
Because I was able to remember the martial arts that I learned growing up from one of the top two instructors. My instructor was Master Little John Davis. And
Mhm.
him teaching us jujitsu allowed me to remember, like, I'm in the prison. This is the funniest thing in the world. I'm in the prison and I'm just basically shadow boxing because I'm like, man, I got to get ready because if they come, I gotta fight. I gotta be able to. And sometimes I would see the inmates walking by and they would be like, and it was like this shock, like, oh, what is he doing? And it didn't dawn on me until later when somebody said to me, you know, we all played after the Channel 5 Kung Fu movies came on back in the days. But you look like you knew what you was doing. I didn't have too many problems in the prison.
Yeah.
The prison became cool and safe.
Yeah.
It's not a place that I would ever wish for anyone to go. But
That's
the cool thing about when you are somewhere, when you are there on assignment, I would say,
right.
everything comes to your aid as long as you don't give up hope,
Yeah.
right? As
You're
long as
protected.
yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. That's so beautiful. I know that we're about to end, but I thank you for the conversation around your mom and just everything. This has been just so profound. I feel like we need to have more of these conversations. There's so many gems that you dropped, so much that I wish I just would have had at a younger age, that would have probably made life a little easier. And I just feel so grateful to you. I feel blessed to be in your presence. But I also feel grateful that you have 10 children that are receiving this. This is a gift, and it's going to continue. I just can't thank you enough. I've been emotional, and this whole time that we've been talking, because of everything that you shared, but also just the deepness of your message, and reminding us to look beyond that Friday, the weekend, and to think about the next 7 generations, to remember our great grandmothers, our great great grandmothers, and to be in conversation with you. It's my heart is so full. I know everyone listening's heart is full. You truly are a gift, your purpose, you are walking in your purpose. And I just want to thank you. Thank you so much. If there's somebody who said it was wonderful and you made them cry a lot. And especially because you are a brother in the movement. I know that we've been able to call on you many times and you've shown up. And I want to thank you for that, because there are times when we don't feel protected, right? When you're on the front lines. But the power of prayer is our protection. And that's the way in which we ended this conversation, is that you were protected. You are chosen. And you've always walked in your purpose. So thank you so much for this conversation. I know that, there are so many people that are just grateful for you, and thank you for sharing not just your wisdom, but your power and the positive energy that you have with everyone. As I say, this book makes a great Christmas and Kwanzaa gift. So if you haven't already done so, please go out and get your copy today. We can all learn so much from Yusef's journey, life journey, testimony. And Yusef, my brother, it's been an honor to share time and space with you. I wish you and the family a joyous holiday. I look forward to hopefully being in person sometime soon. I know with the pandemic, it's been a little interesting, but let's try to find some time and enjoy some hip hop, something. I know the last time we were able to listen to some music was at Many Rivers to Cross. But hopefully we could do something that brings us joy. And I am truly grateful for you. I do not want to have another year go by where we reconnect. And I think that we need to hear from you more. Let people know, how can they get in contact with you? Where could they follow you? How do they book you for speaking engagements? Because it is so important for people to hear your story and to be witness to your journey.
Easiest way to reach me is through my email address, which is also a part of my website, which is yusef@yusefspeaks.com. And that's YUSEF@yusefspeaks.com. Of course, on social media, on Instagram, it's Dr. Yusef Salaam. On Twitter, Dr. Yusef Salaam. I think the differences is maybe a dot on Instagram and an underscore on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Yusef Abdus Salam. That's my my limited page of only 5,000 folks can come to me, or I can follow. And of course, I have a public one, Dr. Yusef Salaam, on Facebook as well. But yeah, man, I'm so honored and blessed to be in this space as well, because this is medicine, right?
Yeah.
Oftentimes people don't realize that, not necessarily just men, but specifically men, we don't get an opportunity to talk, right? Women can say, hey girl, I'm about to go powder my nose, come with me, right? But men don't do that, right? Men tend to keep things balled up. And so whenever I get an opportunity to share, I'm very much aware that it is a therapy session as well, right? It is a moment and an opportunity for me to uncover and discover more about me and heal all over again, It's a beautiful thing, and I'm just honored to be in communication with you all and to share this space and time with you as well. And blessings to your family. Hopefully, we come out of this with global pandemic soon, because the way that this thing seems like it's rolling, it seems like we just gotta hunker down for a little while longer.
It's a roller coaster. It's like it's up and down. I know folks are asking about your other book. Could you also share that one? Could you just share book?
So I have 3 books that
Okay.
are out right now. This book right here, Words of a Man, My Right to Be, is a book that is exclusively only sold on my website.
Okay.
Yusef@yusefspeaks.com, Words of a Man, My Right to Be. Better Not Bitter is my latest offering.
Mhm.
It is the memoir that tells my story and journey of going through, or rather growing through, the prison industrial complex in this space called America. And of course, the beautiful, powerful book, Punching the Air, written with my co-author, Evie Zaboy. I wish I had it with me up here, but I just, man, I don't have it up here. It's downstairs. And oh no, I do have it. I'm sorry. We just released a paperback edition.
Oh, wow.
And this paperback edition, of course, is it's beautifully done with that little piece that they put in there. And, you know, of course, one of the things that I love about the paperback edition as well is that it gets the opportunity to go even further, because oftentimes we can't send hardcover books to prisons.
Right.
There's this thing about contraband, that they think that we're going to be putting things inside of the books, you know, inside the hardcover that they can scan anyway. But, you know, we just got the opportunity to bless the world with this edition on the year anniversary of Punching the Air. And so these are the books, you know.
Yes, congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm so glad to share this all with you all. And, you know, I can't wait to be in person.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. It's been such an honor, and we will definitely be in person, hopefully after all this, you know, gets better. But thank you again, Yusef.
Thank you.
Much love. Thank you.
Much appreciation.
And now it's my privilege not to just say good night, but to wish everyone watching a happy and healthy and safe and joy-filled Christmas, and to those who celebrate, a happy Kwanzaa and a peaceful New Year. It's been one very long year, and one that brought a new set of challenges and opportunities. The Gathering for Justice spent 2021 launching a new host of new initiatives, expanding our programming on both coasts. I personally moved my family back from New York, or actually back from California to New York City, and have had an incredible time these past few months getting back onto the streets that I love so much. But we have so much more to share, so much more work to do, and stories to tell, and youth to inspire. To keep you updated on our work, please follow us at NY Justice League and at Gather 4 Justice on Twitter and Instagram. And finally, if you could support our programs by making a donation, please go to our Cash App at $, Gathering 4 Justice. You could also text The Gathering to 44321, or go to our website, which is gatheringforjustice.org. Until the next time, thank you, everybody.